This particular process can proceed without Ken Ofori Atta being in Ghana. I think that's where the matter is now. The proposal of a trial in absentia can only take place only after Ken Ofori Atta has been served.
That's correct.
Now, he is not in the jurisdiction. And this is a criminal matter, so he would have to be served personally.
Yes.
What other processes can be employed to get him to be served personally, even if he doesn't come to Ghana physically?
Okay.
The option of his lawyers, as in Menka Premo, being served because they represent him legally here, is that feasible?
No, it's not so far until our Supreme Court decides otherwise.
Okay.
So that's how come we decided. When I say we, that's the prosecution as a country, because in this case we all want to Ofori Atta back. So we are saying we, that's the whole state.
Right.
That's how come it's been decided that the charges be sent to him in the U.S.
Okay.
And the judge has accordingly made the order. So my understanding from the OSP, people answering from the OSP, is that the orders were made and the charge sheet, the orders extra have been dispatched to the U.S.
That's right.
So it's now left with the U.S. authorities to now serve Ofori Atta. So that's where the ball is in their court. They have to serve Ofori Atta. You see that sometimes their processes are slower than ours. Yes, you see, we Ghana extradition, we can finish within 3-4 months. But I see in the US, they take years. They are never finishing. So somewhere, somehow, sometimes their processes are slower, much slower than ours, right? So let's wait for the US authorities to serve him. Then, of course, the order would have the number of days for him to, show an interest in coming down or not. Because once he receives it, after a certain number of days, it's not coming down, then the trial will proceed. So let's wait. There's actually, even apart from our local laws, we have the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty. Right. It's an international treaty that the nations have all signed up. So when you need help with some of these things, you would then apply, of course, through your foreign minister, to present it on behalf of the nation to the other nations so that the steps will be gone into. Even in the Mutual Legal Assistance Act, yes, there is provision for the person who is abroad to do video conference. It's there. So you see the time Ofori Atta said, he wanted to do video conference. Yes, it's in the treaty.
So we could have taken that
that's why I told you. So that brings us to the interesting part. Because of that collusion between Kissi Agyapong and Ofori Atta, they pretended that even this trial in absentia could not be done. What were they doing? They were buying Ofori Atta time. Because look, January of 2025, we can check the tape. Lawyer Tadiosori was the first to come out that, look, listen, let's do trial in absentia. Unfortunately for us, a lot of us, of course, that's how, of course, Tadiosori, we all know, is much more experienced and all that. He saw it earlier. I remember even as of that time, some of us didn't understand. So we thought, it was serious sickness. So that I had sympathies for Ofori Atta, if you check. Because my point was that, but the man wrote to you. So my point was on accountability of this state institution. That I didn't even know Kissi Agyapong knew. So my anger was directed towards Julius Debra and Fremor Opare, because the letter shows that he wrote to outgoing chief of staff and then incoming chief of staff. So in the transition team, this is story short, Julius Debra had visibility. So these were the two people, Fremor Opare and this. That I didn't know that Kissi Agyapong had seen. Then the matter began to change for me on two fronts. One, when it turned out that the man went to do a biopsy. Look, put on the medical doctor. Biopsy is not any complex surgery. Biopsy is not. Just taking tissue out of the body to do tests, etc. And they made it kuntai, like some complex thing. Then unfortunately with time, it turned out that he was just making a small procedure look very complex. Then he hid his return date. Even when the biopsy, and then they said after the biopsy, we can check the tail of the tape, the various dates. He said, they are going to do biopsy and possible surgery. Then OSP said, let's give him some time. It turned out soon after that the surgery will not take place. And they kept mute. Waited only a few days to, I think it was going to be May. Yes, that he was to come. Then his lawyers here wrote to the OSP to say that, oh, he's not able to come. Now he needs further time. Meanwhile, when the surgery didn't take place, the quickest thing would have been to fly down, come and go through the procedures, get bail, and then you can apply that you want to go back to the US for medical care.
That was an option.
Yes, and that would have shown bona fides, everything. Me, I would have supported it. But they kept quiet, so you could see that they were deceived. It's a complex game, eh? But then the other fact subsequently came out later in the year when Kissi Agyapong now admitted that he saw the letter that was written to outgoing chief of staff and the incoming. And then he says he ran to NIB, that's a BNI today. He didn't get help. Went to National Security, didn't get help. It turned out they are false. I'm sure I've shown you the letters. I wrote to BNI, they responded that Kissi Agyapong never came. Apart from the letter, I also checked with previous people in charge, etc. He never went there. He was lying. He said he went to National Security. National Security wrote that they didn't see him there. It's immigration. So Ghana immigration, look, you have to respond to that letter. So far, it's Ghana immigration that has been dodging, doing, I don't know what sympathies they have for this in Kissi Agyapong.
What exactly were you seeking in that letter?
Yes, they should tell me, did he come there? Did he come to Ghana immigration service that they should arrest Ofori Atta at the airport, and listen, they didn't respond. But so far, 2 out of the 3 institutions he's mentioned, they turned out to be false. So then, it tells you the whole plot. The whole plot, and then add the other thing. So they said, no, try and absentia cannot be done. Sammy Darko, who sent you notices. Check the tape. Sammy Darko, I have private conversations with Sammy Darko those days before they arrested me and we fell out. He said, try and absentia, it can never be done. He said, try and absentia can never be done because Ofori Atta didn't go to court once and fled. He says,
what he said now is that the trial in absentia can only take place after he has been served.
That's all. Yes, and I'm telling that he's now changed. So I'm telling that the whole thing they did, I think Sammy Darko, that's my accusation, he and Kissi Agyapong, they deliberately were making the case that try and absentia so that they'll buy him time.
To come and give us the opinion. Because
they bought him time.
It's too personal. We are talking of Ken Ofori Atta situation.
Yes, I'm telling you. Wait, let me. You had your time.
No, he didn't.
He spoke first.
It was just about the.
No, you spoke first.
No, it was just about the permanent resident.
Wait.
No, so I'm telling you that in January.
He's now speaking.
In January, all we are saying is that in January 2025, when Senior Tadiosori said, do try and absentia, check. Just go, you see. OSP, they were denying that, you can't do trial and absentia. When the man was leaving, there was no case. So unless you bring him into Ghana, you can't. I'm telling you that's what Sammy Darko was saying all over, that you can't do trial and absentia. Challenging lawyers. That which
that's history. Okay, now you can try him.
Yes, and the history is important.
Keep me, don't interrupt.
We are just having the chat. And you also made the
you complain of interruption. You are doing the same thing.
I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you. No, your microphone is off.
You spoke to him, then him. These are the two I've not spoken. No. You have not complained of. You have also
that's not true.
But he has spoken already on the matter. He knows.
Hold on.
That's about a minute.
Well, but whether a minute or not, I'm just reminding you that you have spoken.
Hold on. When I started the conversation, I went to him to confirm a position that he had already put out a year ago regarding Ken Ofori Atta.
But did he
hold on. Seeking permanent status. That was just that part of the conversation. It was just a minute. You have spoken substantively about the matter. Let him speak, please.
Yeah. So you see that these guys at OSP Kissi and Sammy Darko, they bought Ofori Atta time. January, no, they can't be trial and absentia. We rather bring him to start. You can't do trial and absentia because on the day Ofori Atta was leaving, there was no criminal case. He had not appeared physically. Then they were referring to Bonsu alias Benjilo. That's our foremost case on extradition. Trial and absentia. Because in Benjilo, that Bonsu case, there was a Nigerian, not Bonsu himself. There's a Nigerian in that case who came to court, and then the case was adjourned. He was on bail, then he fled. So they took it as if you must physically go into the courtroom, the case be called, and then you subsequently flee before trial and absentia can be done. Meanwhile, that's not the law. Even the Constitution itself does not say so. So what I'm saying is that thing was deliberate to buy Ofori Atta time so that this application for permanent residence, that is my assessment. Because any lawyer would know, it's our Constitution. it's our constitution. Go to court. If the court say he must first come, then you know that is the court. But Sammy Darko, how old are you at the bar? They kept saying that. Yes, that's what I'm saying. In the constitution, Article 19, Clause 3, right? It's clear. It doesn't put any impediments that the what do you call it? The person must physically come to the court before absconding. Then you can now say try in absentia. That says that if we notify you and you don't come, we will go ahead. And I'm telling you that it took almost a year for OSP to yield. And I'm telling you that thing was deliberate so that they'll buy Ofori Atta time, so that this is application for residence permit will gain traction, so that we'll move quickly, so that we'll reach a very critical stage, almost be done. And that's what they've achieved.
But does
so now let's go.
Does he being granted permanent status make our case any difficult in trying to...
Oh, absolutely. It makes the case a lot more difficult. You see, right now, but quickly, before we go into that, it is that, but it is not impossible. Yes, it doesn't mean that because he's a permanent resident, he can never come. So on paper, you say that, oh, it is still possible. But practically, he's gained a lot more protection. And let's not forget, in this analysis, so as a permanent resident, he can roam the U.S. now freely. He can work. The U.S. Constitution protects him, etc. So I think the U.S. will lightly give him up. Even leave aside for now John Ashcroft that he has as one of his lead lawyers. Ashcroft, who is a lobbyist. And I keep saying, see, people don't understand. Let's make this point. Ashcroft is not just a lawyer and former attorney general of the U.S. He's also a lobbyist. Lobby, like what Ghana, we've not structured it so well. And the U.S., there are laws, etc. Because, you know, a lot of lobbying involves influence peddling and corruption. A lot of lobbying, right, involves influence peddling and corruption. So it's that area, some gray area, they work in that areas. And so I'm telling you that the influence that John Ashcroft has to get to Ofori Atta here, master, the best would be that Akufo Addo and the NPP ask Ofori Atta to calm down. Please. That is the one Ashcroft cannot deal with, because then that one they are telling Ofori Atta that you are ruining our chances for 2028. Of course, they will lose, but at least if they brought him, maybe their chances will be better. And ultimately, 2032, they will be off. So perhaps when they begin to tell Ofori Atta, look at the end game. If you don't come here, you keep us forever in opposition. Okay, so it's better that you came down so that you face the charges. So that even if he's convicted, who knows? By 2032, if you come, you can give him a pardon. You see? By you see that at least you have done 5 years. You know, Ghanaians generally.
He's not guilty. Don't talk like that.
Don't talk like that. Yeah, we are giving the scenario.
He's not guilty.
Right?
He's innocent.
So as we speak, the alternative. Now, taking into consideration the realities that we are faced with, what is the most potent option that can be resorted to by law enforcement agencies to get him to be officially and personally notified for either trial in absentia to take place or for him to be brought to Ghana personally to answer to the questions?
Oh, so for law enforcement, as I said, my understanding from the news portals, etc., is that the documents, the charge sheet, and the orders are with the Justice Department. Well, as whether they've also handed over, we don't know. So perhaps they should be, the Attorney General met, the Attorney General in the Yoko bombs, they met the FBI, etc.
The Department of Justice. I think earlier in the week.
Earlier in the week. Yes. So maybe, if it's possible, you know, some of these things, they don't like putting all out in the media, but at least some general information will be useful. That where are we? As for serving Ofori Atta, that one, I don't think it's a sensitive matter. No, right. So at least maybe AG, Dr. Dominic Ayine and Stremside, they should look at it and tell us how close are we? So that, and also when he receives it, how many days did the judge give? Is it 30 days or 2 months after? If he doesn't come, then we continue. That would be very useful. I don't think that is sensitive, because these are court documents. They are, these are public information. Where has the Justice Department reached, that's the U.S. authorities, in terms of getting Ofori Atta served? That is very key. Let's get that information out into the media so that we see that at least work is being done. so that there will be little space for people who want to, spin, political actors who want to spin all this and say Ora is dead because they are not seeing how far Ofori Atta's trial is going. But at least the fact that the papers are of the U.S. authority is significant progress, right? Right. Yes. So that is it. So please. Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to Madam Clayton, but let me acknowledge the presence of Manasseh Azure Awene. He is a celebrated investigative journalist, done quite some work in regarding the subject that we're talking about this morning. Manasseh, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Manasseh, can you hear me?
Thank you, Alfred, for having me.
Perfect. Thank you. And Amanda,
Yes, I can hear you, Alfred.
Great. Thank you. If you can put the device you're listening to me on off so you hear me directly through the Zoom, that would be good. Amanda, you had indicated that the green card or the permanent status does not guarantee immunity. But then again, Kpebu talks about how the dynamics of that alone even makes our case a little more difficult, in trying to get him to come and answer questions.
Yes, because I think it really strengthens, having the U.S. green card really strengthens his humanitarian, public, political persecution and discretionary arguments. He can go further with that because he's a U.S. citizen. But I think I also want to focus on the quote you have up, where his lawyers say that the court says the charges in Ghana are not credible.
Yes.
And as we all know, based on our sovereignty and, because of accountability, it might be an incorrect statement just because the charges are comparable, because, they're always looking at, is this fraud charge similar to a type of fraud charge there? It's comparable. But I think the ultimate thing that should be under discussion is perception, in terms of this perception of anti-corruption and human rights fighting, because it takes a lot for a U.S. court to say that the charges in Ghana are not credible, particularly if when they look at their types of charges, it's very similar. So what we have to understand might have gone on there is that decision came from intelligence in terms of the information they were given as to what is the state of this matter in Ghana. And having worked at the Attorney General's Department in Ghana, in the international team, we would always do things like look up what other people are saying. Like, for instance, the CIA publishes an annual report on Ghana, and it has a very thorough anti-corruption or corruption section. We have an FBI office in Ghana who constantly liaises with Yoko, national security, etc. So when we're talking about intelligence and then the U.S. Embassy, this is something they can get in terms of information about perceived persecution, etc. And my personal view is that, and my professional view, is that Ghana has actually gone too far in satisfying Mr. Ofori Atta's arguments on the perception of corruption and of persecution. And they've done so because although they've got this really healthy oral campaign and, it is very sort of marketing and it's all over the place and their opinions are everywhere, what oral does not address, and that is why there is this international and local perception, what oral does not address is that they are never looking in their own house. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. We've got a less than 1% rating, in terms of less of 1% of your own stewards, etc. And this is not I know Honorable spoke about this, and he says you never hear of scandals in this government. You don't hear of scandals in this government because the lengths that people go to almost protect individuals is unprecedented. I mean, I gave the example of Sierra Leone. In less than 6 days, they shut that down. The president's name was all over the place on TikTok, etc. How his sister's husband had defrauded so many internationals from gold, and they had used his name, etc. In 6 days, they shut that thing down because they issued a wanted poster for him. They interviewed his own sister in a CID headquarters in Freetown. And they are supposed to be, on the scale of the corruption stage, more corrupt than us. And when it comes to Ghana, money talks. The corruption poll that we just looked at, or the corruption perception poll, says that for ministers, the perception is 4.54%. For the presidency, 4.84%. For the judiciary, incredibly high, 5.41%, etc. And I don't say this in a vacuum, but I do think that if I was abroad and representing Ofori Atta in terms of this political persecution thing, Ghana has literally handed them over 400 articles you can independently search online about everything from his whites, his religion, his the whites he wears, the religion, the horns that come out of his head apparently, etc. And that is the definition of what political persecution is. And he's no longer fighting, I think, that he's seeking asylum because obviously he's gotten this green card. But in the UK and US, for instance, the only criteria you can pass for asylum, the only criteria, is that asylum bid must show that through articles and online you were persecuted. But if you say that, oh, I was just persecuted, etc., they can't objectively verify that. So I think as Oral is doing incredibly well with their marketing, I would call it, and their tainting of people's name at will, who have built reputations for over 20, 30 years. The thing this government also has to appreciate is it will come back to them, be it in 2 years' time or 6 years' time. The energy you've used to soil people's names is the same energy that will be used, and it will be just considered, oh, well, nothing came of the case or something came of the case. But I think that to say that we never hear of scandal in this 1.5 years government is, in my professional opinion, a falsehood, because I truly believe the extent to which this government goes to protect their own, be it with the judiciary, with agencies, and with institutions and different things, means that we cannot say that we never hear of scandals. So and if Oral is going to be effective, Oral must look inside their own house in terms of a less than 1% rate of corruption in your own party. I mean, you must be saints. Or you really must be saints. I mean, less than 0.25%.
No, because Amanda, you don't understand.
Hold on.
Yeah. Okay.
If you can,
yes.
What I wanted to find out, you made a statement about the fight against corruption. Two things.
Yeah.
The perceived political persecution of Ken Ofori Atta.
Yes. And human rights.
You talk about some over 400 articles that you have searched, right?
Yeah.
That you can find.
Yeah.
Have they given enough gravitas to that position to be held on and extended as a potent reference for Ken Ofori Atta not to come to Ghana?
In terms
based on what you have seen?
Yes, in terms of the arguments that they could make, definitely. Because you're talking about being convicted before you have even been tried in terms of the language that is being used. And where is that language coming from? That language is coming from very senior members of the government who are supposed to be pursuing him, but the decision has already been made. And granted, you know, the Attorney General has perhaps rightfully said the reason he wants Ken Ofori Atta to come back or to come down is that there is an extensive investigation that is going on, and I presume it means Ejapa and all these other deals, and you don't want to compromise the investigation to a certain extent, because it might mean other people who are in Ghana, and it might mean, you know, this multi-billion-dollar investigation. So they're basically saying the charges they put forth are the ones that they can publicly discuss now. But should they grab him and he comes here, then they can talk about Ejapa and all these sort of different deals. But in terms of, in terms of international law, the government, ironically, this NDC government has actually made the case for Ken Ofori Atta's government, or Ken Ofori Atta's lawyers, for him to never step foot here whilst they are in power, because of the sheer language and the persecution in terms of, he hasn't been tried. Yes, this is the potential charge. But the labeling, and the labeling coming out of whose mouth? And so the decision has already been made. And then when you compare that to the corruption perception score, which seems to be increasing in certain quarters we haven't seen. For instance, the judiciary, 5.41%. A presidency is probably around the same, 4.84%. You know, you match that with, for instance, a CIA country report of Ghana, 2025, 2026, if it's out. You know, this is intelligence. And then you match it with what is the local FBI office saying about their interactions with our agencies in terms of they all share information. But how much of that information leads to arrests? And why have we got an MP that had to be arrested outside because maybe he couldn't have been arrested here, and another person who was in Morocco, not part of government? But it seems that for people who have money in this country, the perception internationally is they must get on a flight, because they will, you know, throw money at the judges, maybe they'll throw money at their lawyers, they will sue judges, sue lawyers, do everything. And so you cannot get you cannot get a result here, sort of thing. And that person would either have to go internationally. So back to the oral point, I really think oral is a wonderful mandate. It's a wonderful policy initiative. It is good that they do these sort of media outreach, monthly briefings, and our Deputy Attorney General very helpfully shares all the cases that are going on every week, you know, with his color-coordinated chart, which I pay attention to and everybody pays attention to. Wonderful. But if you've got a less than 1% rate of attempted charges or suspicions in your own party, those figures don't match anywhere globally. And so the public perception and the international perception is that NDC will protect their own, perhaps at all cost. And the devil is NPP, who must be vilified, including their religion, their clothes, everything. And that is not how anti-corruption works. Anti-corruption works where everybody is up for grabs and where politically exposed people are held more accountable than using the system that was created to rather go against journalists, lawyers, everybody else. But it's like narcissism. It's never me. It's just them.
Okay.
But quick one. Amanda, but that's how the world works, just generally. Because even if you take the US, look at Trump with all his issues. When he became president, they stopped his sentence. They stopped the sentence. He still has
those charges.
But they stopped his sentence. Because who was convicted.
He's convicted.
Even in his own, this administration, the US, you see open corruption, people are complaining, they are not able to do much. You see, Bondi was eventually kicked out.
Thank you very much.
So he's up over the world.
But less than 1%. Less than 1%.
Thank you. Let me Kojo Kyeremanteng.
Yeah. Let me quickly start with the oral and what the corruption perception that she was talking about, that 1% within the government. You see,
less.
you are not part of the government and you do not know the kind of edict, the kind of things that have been issued by the president and his chief of staff to the CEOs, to political appointees, to people that should you get yourself involved in any scandal, nobody in government is going to stand with you. You will face it and squarely. You know, these are things that they are reminded every day, the CEOs, when they go for meeting at the presidency. So everybody has been put on alert that should there be any allegation against you of corruption, you will be the first. Nobody is coming to stand with you. And the party itself has also warned these appointees. So if you say because the perception is low, how will you compare that to also say that when the economy was so bad, even the international committee has said that the quick rise and the stability in the economy, it's something that they have never seen for several years.
Perfect.
So if you are saying that the perception corruption index has come down, it is not normal, then how do you also say that once the economy rose to stability, it has not been normal?
Okay.
Now, you see, when you are saying that in Ghana, we are protecting our own, can you give me a specific case that an appointee has done something and has been... It's a general statement you are putting. Now, you see, we have journalists, we have the opposition, right? And the opposition is always attentive to see, to be able to bring issues, allegations out, right? And there are private papers, the media is always handing to see that what is the news, to break the news. For this time, because of the warning, the stern warning that has been given to appointees, even to an extent that appointees were told that, listen, celebrating birthdays to throw a bash is a thing of the past. Hey! No. Okay. You see, you can do it.
Can I answer that question?
You didn't see the recent...
Who?
The recent CNN, you didn't see a birthday party, but we didn't see it.
Who? Whose party?
The lady said her birthday party.
National service, yeah. I heard something like
yes, the opulence.
But you should listen.
No, it's not saying that you cannot commemorate and say your birthday, right? But the opulence that we see being thrown, a bash, that is what I'm saying.
So
now let's move on quickly to
who determines the level of opulence? Is there any measure of what the opulence is and what can be allowed in this particular instance as you are referencing?
Yes.
Who determines what is opulent and not regarding this directive of birthdays?
The birthdays.
Yes.
Now,
is there any measure?
Why not? Why wouldn't there be a measure? If it is solemn, if something is done, what we see, the organization, would the party, the events will tell you that this is an opulent thing. Something that has been done, also in contrary, which is solemn, you would see for yourself. You will know.
We saw the opulence. We saw the opulence. What are you talking about?
And the people is the public opinion, right? We have public opinion. So we cannot guide citizens and say that because they've spoken, yes, about Ofori Atta, what the society is saying, that there should be accountability, that would be a bar that we would measure and say it is persecution. No. Society wants accountability. Now let me come. How did Ofori Atta came into the public limelight?
But can I answer your question? You said have I seen it for myself?
How did he come to the public limelight? Both Ofori Atta, before he came into public office, was the chair of Data Bank, right? Was the chair of Data Bank. He was doing his business. Who had issues with him? Society never had issues with him.
We always had. There were time investment.
Yes.
He had issues with Snake long ago.
Long ago. Wow. Even before, yes.
Yeah.
They
had issues with him. It's just that Ghana.
Yeah, now, so when he came to the public scene, which party, which people, which vehicle did he use? He used the NPP as a member of the NPP party and wrote on that political party when they came into office. And the president said, we are bringing an investment banker, an accomplished one, reputed, for us to bring the economy and bring all the investments and all the connections that and the relationship he has built to bring it a bear on the finances and the economy of the nation. And that MPP celebrated that they have one of the best. That is how he came on the scene.
Okay.
Even his family celebrated him because he was appointed as a minister of state. Right? Everybody came and we heard from the beginning Asempa budget. When they brought all this Asempa budget, you were using resources of the state. And now people are calling on you to come for accountability. Accountability is part of our constitution. So it's not about a private matter and say it is about his decision to come or not. It is not about his private issue. When he was a private man, nobody really came and said, Ofori Atta, you owe me, you do this. If there was any issue, they would have gone to court to settle the matter. But we are talking about accountability. And you see, it is not like within the law, there is no morality. He was, and he has been a role model. People saw him. People saw him and his conduct. Now, the reason why society is calling for him is that we don't want to set a bad precedent that you can come to public office. There is the allegation and perception that things haven't gone well, or you have taken some decision, and you will use the legal means and say that, yes, it is about his own legal issues and he has to. Look, nobody would have taken him on if he hasn't done. There's an evidence in the budget where he allocated resources to the National Cathedral. The National Cathedral, we were told, was a private initiative. And you have allocated money. Come and answer under what circumstances? Well, what happened for you to allocate government resources to the National Cathedral? And you want to tell us that it's a private matter? We can do that.
I see.
Now, let me come in. You see, the other bad faith is also that when the issue of Sedinam and even her coming back, they said the NDC won't bring her. The NDC as a party will shield her. She's not going to be brought back. She's in. And the same MPP and minority now comes in and says she's under house arrest. We've not seen her in prison. We should show evidence. Where is the precedent? That somebody has been convicted or handed over to the security and the prisons. The minority will say that we know she's under house arrest. In which house? Have they given us any location to the house in which she is arrested? And you see, they should go to the prison, go to the security. The same party people who are calling and are saying that it is private matter for Ofori Atta to determine are the same party coming double standard and are coming and say that where is Sedinam? And there should be pomp and pageantry that when Sedinam came at the airport, it should be shown to the whole world. She's come in, she's in her prison clothes, she's here. The same party. This is the double standard. And society is watching and saying that, look, what Ofori Atta will do, his coming or not, will have a bearing on this party.
Okay.
And we are saying that, look, the last one, you see, this communication is a press release from the lawyers. Alfred, have you seen the ruling of this court on this immigration matter? No. This is a slant to it. That slant to it from the lawyers. That is why he's saying that.
That's how you want to see it.
No, yes. Have you seen the ruling?
But you haven't seen it as well. So why do you say it's a slant?
That's why I'm telling you that he said, however, the court may, within the context of immigration proceedings, where they are saying that the legal proceedings that we have, the charges that maybe have been brought, is not credible. I don't think any court would ever say that what is happening in the sovereign country, their charges, is not credible as compared to their law.
Okay.
No sovereign.
Let me bring in Manasseh Azure on this particular development as well. Taking into consideration what you referenced regarding the position of the lawyers' communication, and I was quite clear when I was reading this that this is the communication of the lawyers to us all about what has happened, which has not been disputed anyway. So the granting of his permanent status is not an issue. Manasseh, you followed this matter quite closely. Now we're getting to know what you, after Martin Kpebu put this out last year, you also came to corroborate it, that indeed you had received information based on from your own sources regarding Ken Ofori Atta seeking permanent status. Well, that has happened now, and according to the lawyers here, it may make our case a little more difficult trying to get him in. You followed this case quite. What are you expecting in the coming days regarding this, especially now that the Attorney General, we understand, has had meetings, series of meetings with the Department of Justice, and then also the quest to proceed with a trial in absentia after serving him?
Thank you very much. I think some of these developments come to confirm our concerns when we started questioning why the OSP slept on the job from 2023, when we first petitioned the office to investigate Ofori Atta, started the investigation only in 2025. And some untruths were put out there, and we had evidence to say that, look, this was what really happened. Some of us knew that even if the permanent status wasn't even granted, the extradition could travel for a long time. And I am not a lawyer, so I defer to lawyers who have given reasoned opinions on this and have said that it doesn't stop us from, or it doesn't stop the process, but it makes it difficult. Someone even said that, look, with this, Ofori Atta can decide to travel to a country where Ghana has no extradition arrangement, and that will be the end of everything. This tells us that when the security agencies or state anti-corruption agencies are dealing with matters, they shouldn't just work as if they have all the time in the world. And I'm also getting this conversation about political persecution and all of that. And I think that when we are talking about that, let's be fair to the facts of this matter. The SML scandal did not begin in this administration. The SML scandal is not being prosecuted by the Office of the Attorney General, which is a political appointment. The SML scandal, if anybody is minded to read the KPMG report and then the report or the white paper.
Hello?
So-called on that report released two documents I'm talking about, then we should stop talking about political persecution. President Akufo Addo is a relative, a blood relative of Ken Ofori Atta. Ken Ofori Atta served in his administration, and the president's release mentioned a number of
Hello,
Manasseh. Wrong with that contract, including the. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, there's a glitch in the connection. I don't know if it's coming from your end or ours.
Yes.
Hello?
Am I clear?
No, yes, it's better now. Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I was making a point that if one is minded to look at the KPMG report and President Akufo Addo's release on that report, there is enough evidence that even at that time, a lot of wrong had been done, including ignoring PPA disapprovals and rejection of certain requests and going ahead to award contracts, including we paying over 500 million cedis to SML in respect of the transaction audit and external price verification, in which President Akufo Addo's own release said that those services were redundant because the GRA had inbuilt systems to perform those functions. So if all of these things were said by the government within which Ken Ofori Atta served, and then an independent office set up to fight corruption, not by President Mahama, but by President Akufo Addo, is holding that man to account. I see no reason why we should try to be pushing when there is an ongoing case in the past, now, in the future. It happens in the US or everywhere. You cannot control the rhetoric. You cannot control what politicians say about it. Mm-hmm. It isn't a judge that has come out to say that Ken Ofori Atta is guilty, and it isn't the special prosecutor that has come out to say, look, when he comes, you are throwing him in jail. There are processes, and I don't think there is any basis for us to be pushing this angle of political persecution.
Well, Amanda referenced the articles and statements that have been made as a basis. Gentlemen, hello. Yes. As a basis for that point that she made regarding the political persecution.
These articles and statements concerning politicians are made everywhere in the world. We should look at the facts. Some of the people who have walked free from court after these years went through all of that. Politicians who say anything. It is even worse in the US. They have a more vibrant media, and their contempt laws are not as stringent as ours. When a politician is involved, you can't take away the political rhetoric. But are we going to elevate that above the facts? That this matter first happened within the government when it was first reported. The president, who is a cousin of the man we are talking about, commissioned KPMG, and that report is damning. And even the president's release on that report actually mentioned a number of damning things. The office that is prosecuting him is an office set up by his cousin and then the government within which he served. So you can control the commentary, but the question is, who takes the final decision? Is it the courts? Is it any politician who wants to make a case out of it? What didn't the MPP say about Bawumia and all of that? What happened in the end? So the point I'm making is, there are facts, there are issues that we should deal with, and saying because a politician has said this, or a journalist has said this, or this has said this, this is political persecution. Let's look at the case and the administration within which a lot of the things happened. And I don't think this is one of the cases that we can, by stretch of any imagination, say that this is political persecution.
Would that be from where you sit? Because you also have made certain comments. The research that Amanda references also captures statements attributed to you, for instance. Would that be a potent covering whatsoever for Ken Ofori Atta and his lawyers to resort to?
If Manasseh says that, and I don't run away from the statements I have made, I say he has questions to answer. I say some of the contracts he signed, and then what I have seen, it takes a lot of wickedness to do that. When somebody of his stature was nearly killed by COVID-19 and its complications, you went to the US and got your treatment. You come back, our hospitals don't have those treatments for the rest of us. And you use the money that is supposed to go into building this infrastructure, you waste them, and when you get out of power, you go elsewhere. as a citizen of this country, I have the legitimate reason to say that such a person must come back to face the law.
Thanks for watching. Like and share the video. You can also drop your comment. Please don't forget to subscribe. Click on the bell to turn on the notification.